Welcome to Healing ADHD Marriages. I'm Dr. Stacy Brown. Today we're going to talk about memory in marriage. Have you ever said something important to your spouse and then realized later that they forgot? Maybe it was an important appointment that you had been worrying about, or a conversation about something painful, or maybe it was a promise that they made, a favorite meal, an important date, a family event, or something you had asked them to remember. When this happens repeatedly, the pain is often deeper than the forgotten detail. A spouse may begin to think, if this really mattered to you, why didn't you remember it? They may feel overlooked. They may feel as though they have to carry all the planning, all the reminders, and all the emotional details in your relationship. They may begin to wonder whether they truly matter in their spouse's mind. This is why memory matters in marriage. Remembering is one of the ways we communicate value to one another. When you remember something that your spouse said, you are communicating, I heard you. I care about what matters to you. You have a place in my heart and in my mind. That can be especially meaningful in an ADHD affected marriage. ADHD can certainly affect working memory, organization, time awareness, follow through, and the ability to hold on to many details at the same time. A spouse may genuinely care deeply and still forget appointments, promises, dates, conversations, or important tasks. This is important. Even when forgetting is not intentional, the impact on the other spouse can still be painful. Explaining why something happens is not the same as excusing the hurt it causes. A spouse with ADHD may need compassion and practical support. A spouse who has been repeatedly forgotten may need validation and reassurance. Both needs can be true at the same time. The goal is not to blame one another. The goal is to build systems that protect trust. Memory is both a capacity and a choice. We may not control every detail in our brain, but we can choose to create supports that help us remember what is important. That is good news. You don't have to rely on memory alone. You can build a marriage that is supported by intentional tools. Let's talk about what that looks like. First, create a shared place for important information. This could be a shared digital calendar. It could be a large calendar on the refrigerator. It could be a notebook that stays in one place, or a shared list on your phone. The tool matters less than the consistency. The important question is, where do important details go after they are discussed? If one spouse says, hey, my doctor's appointment is next Thursday, that information should not simply float away into just thin air after the conversation ends. It should go into the shared system. If you promise to handle something, write it down immediately. If your spouse tells you about an important event, put it on the calendar even while they're still talking about it. That is not unromantic. That's actually very helpful. It's a way of saying, I do not want to depend on good intentions alone. I want to create a reliable way to care for what matters to you. Second, learn the difference between remembering information and remembering your spouse. A spouse may remember work deadlines or sports statistics, television details, or things connected to their special interests, but then forget what their spouse shared. And that can feel especially hurtful. The issue is not always that a person has no memory. Sometimes the issue is that they have not developed the habit of giving intentional mental attention to their spouse's world. Your spouse's world includes more than major dates. It includes their concerns, their interests, their hopes, their fears, their other relationships, their victories, and their disappointments. When you remember these things, you communicate that you know your spouse is a person. For example, you might remember that your spouse had a difficult meeting this week, and so you ask, how did that go? You might remember that they mentioned a family member who was struggling and ask, hey, how's your sister doing? You might remember that they enjoy a certain kind of coffee and you bring it home to them and surprise them. You might remember that they've been carrying a very stressful responsibility and offer to ask them to help even before they ask you. These moments may seem small, but they build emotional connection. They say, I notice you. I remember you. I care about your life. Third, use reminders as an act of love, not as evidence of failure. Some people resist using calendars or alarms or notes or reminders because they feel they should be able to remember them naturally. But there is no prize for making your marriage harder than it needs to be. If reminders help you keep promises, then show up on time and follow through and remember what matters to your spouse, then reminders are not a weakness. They are wisdom. Set an alarm for an important conversation. Add a reminder to check in after your spouse's appointment. Create a note on your phone called Things That Matter to My Spouse. Write down gift ideas, their favorite foods, upcoming events, prayer requests, concerns, and things that your spouse says they need. Then review that list regularly, either with them or on your own. This is not about becoming mechanical. It's about becoming dependable. Fourth, remember that trust is built through follow-through. When someone says, I will do that, and then does it, trust grows. When someone remembers an appointment, a promise, or an important conversation, their spouse feels safer relying on them. But when commitments are repeatedly forgotten, trust can weaken. The forgotten task may seem small to the person who forgot it, but it can become part of a larger pattern for the spouse who has been disappointed many times. They may stop asking. They may stop sharing. They may take on more responsibility because they no longer believe that help is going to come. That is why building memory systems is not just about organization. Let me turn my light back on. Sorry about that. That is why building memory systems is not just about organization. It's about repairing reliability. If you are the spouse who struggles with remembering, begin with one promise. Do not make commitments casually. Before you say yes, pause. Ask yourself, can I put this into my system right now? If the answer is no, say, I want to help, but I need to write this down before I promise. That one sentence can prevent many painful misunderstandings. And if you do forget, do not become defensive. Avoid saying, you should have reminded me, or it was not that important, was it? Instead, say something like, I understand that this mattered to you, and I did not follow through. I'm sorry. I want to make a better system so this does not keep happening. That response does not erase the disappointment, but it creates room for repair. Now, if you are the spouse who has become the family reminder system, you may feel tired. You may feel as though you have to manage the schedule, the children, the appointments, the household, and your spouse's responsibilities too. That's a heavy burden. It may be tempting to keep every detail in your head because you do not trust anyone else to remember. But a healthier marriage requires shared responsibility. Instead of repeatedly reminding your spouse in frustration, try building a clear agreement together. You might say, I do not want to carry all of this alone. Can we choose one calendar and agree that we will both check it every day? Or, when we make a commitment, can we both put it into the calendar before we move on? Or, I need you to take responsibility for remembering your commitments. What system will you use? These are not attacks. They are invitations to build a stronger partnership. The Bible reminds us that love is thoughtful. Love pays attention. Love bears burdens. In marriage, one way we bear burdens is by remembering the things that are heavy, meaningful, and important to the person we love. You may not remember perfectly, but you can become more intentional. Here is your action step for this week. Choose one shared memory system. It can be a calendar, a notebook, or a shared phone list. Then choose 3 things to add to it today. One upcoming appointment, one responsibility or promise, and one thing that matters personally to your spouse. It could be a concern, a goal, a favorite thing, or something they have been carrying emotionally. Then set one reminder to follow up. You might remind yourself to ask, how did that appointment go? Or how are you feeling about that situation? Or did you get the support you needed today? Those small acts of remembering can become powerful acts of love. If this video encouraged you, subscribe to Healing ADHD Marriages. Here we offer practical tools, biblical encouragement, and hope for couples who want to strengthen connection and rebuild trust.